And sorry, I don't know if you are doing like a whole podcast thing or we're just going to jump into
Yeah, no.
normal
So
convo.
I should
What I
probably
wanted
tell
to
you.
say,
Doug is the creative professional and founder of Slow the Fuck Down. He combines wit, wisdom, and a wealth of experience in personal growth and psychedelic integration. With a background in equity trading, an MBA from UCLA Anderson, and training in jobs to be done research, Doug brings a unique perspective to his work. He's passionate about helping others integrate sustainable wellness practices into their lives. His journey, filled with humor and real-life anecdotes, offers listeners practical advice and inspiration for slowing down, tuning in, and thriving in a fast-paced world. I'm really happy I got to catch up with Doug on today's episode of the L3 by Flourish podcast. So dude, thanks for hopping on. And Doug, you're one of like my favorite just like LinkedIn follows. And I really, like I said, I've really enjoyed building this interesting network of LinkedIn active, mental health, wellness, community building kind of solopreneurs. I think there's such a hunger, I think in our generation is like, we get the value of working for a larger company, but we quickly kind of see that there's more to kind of a work experience. I think our generation is very purpose driven. We're also pretty resourceful. I think we love technology, but we're not like super dependent on it. Like we really do see the benefit of in-person stuff and like connecting in that way. So it's not an accident, that I come across all these people in what I call like the human experience industry, whether it's mental health or some sort of conscious or community building network. So Doug's one of these people that I'll find funny and interactive and community based in his offerings and his social media presence. So the question I like to ask people in general on calls, on pods, whatever it is when did you first learn about or hear the term mental health? Because I think that, time in your life and kind of the story behind that is always super interesting to me.
yeah, that's a tough question. I can't pinpoint any specific time. My mom is a social worker now. She went to school, interested in psychology, and her mom told her there's no good jobs in psychology. So she pivoted, became a lawyer, and then raised me and my siblings, and went back and now has her social work degree. And similarly, I took psychology courses in undergrad. I had an interest in it too. Um, so I guess like relatively young was kind of aware of this mental health concept. Had my own mental health battles. I was on Propecia, which is a prescription hair loss drug, when I was 13. On it for 10 years, and that was rough on my mental health and physical health. So had firsthand experience in that regard. And when I was able to come off of that medication drug and uh, rediscover life and enjoyment of life, that expanded upon my relationship with mental health even more. And yeah, I think that's the biggest thing for me, is that mental health is its own thing, but it's also not, in that it's, one of the best tools for your mental health is your physical health, exercise and diet and um, sleep, and all these factors that uh, are less in a therapist's office and more just like living my day-to-day life. um, and they're preventative measures, I guess, in a lot of ways. So where I first heard about it, I don't know. I'm continuing to evolve my relationship with it, and what it means, and yeah, just trying to live my best life.
Yeah, no, that last piece hits home for me. So, evolving your relationship with it, I first was introduced to mental health in a very like booky academic way. Like I saw it as a research avenue. I studied it in undergrad, and I tried to get my hands on any book I could read on it, and I would do research papers on it. And it was very, very empirical and research oriented. And the thing about I think like science and the scientific method, it's very reductionist. You're trying to reduce the probability that something is up to chance. That's the purpose of research. And a lot of psychology research is really awesome and is a great place to start. But as I evolved and really grasped, really as a society, what we look at when we talk about mental health, it means everything. And I think part of my evolution with mental health is getting out of the this is right, this is wrong, this is maladaptive, this is adaptive, this is a diagnosis, this isn't. That's the medical model. That's kind of the scientific model, which is, again, beautiful and useful in some ways. But I think the evolution of our mental health really is about flexibility, adaptability, the ability to kind of just own different relationships and understand the cycle of things. I've been very fluid on it, is my point. And I think it takes it was more of a book kind of application before, and now it's more of an applied, how am I showing up? It's a practice, more so than a knowledge bank that I'm accumulating. But that leads me to one of my questions, and we have some similarities that I'd love to explore. We're both East Coast kids, born and raised in the Hudson Valley in New York, the tri-state area. And then we moved out west to California for grad school. So a big part of my story is I love thinking about education, and both my parents were teachers. And actually last night I had a dream about graduation, and I was myself, my like 30-year-old self, but I was in the body of my 17, 18-year-old senior in high school self. My high school looked all different. I had this like really NFL style stadium that was for my football team, which we did not have in real life. But I had this really cool tricked out graduation experience in my dream. And it just got me thinking about education and really what the role of that meant for me. And if I were to go back, what would I tell myself at 17, knowing what I know now? And I have a bunch of dreams like that where I'll go back to like old cross country races as my adult self, but in my 16-year-old body. So with your education journey, I know you're tri-state kid. I think with the U of Michigan, right, for undergrad, and then UCLA, these huge institutions. I'd love to learn about just your education, your opinion on it, your a relationship with it. How did you how did you lean into the MBA? How did you decide we were going to study in undergrad? Yeah, just walk me through your relationship with your educational journey.
Yeah, great questions. You're lucky to have dreams about running cross country races. Mine are stress dreams about I forgot to do a project and I have to present it in front of the class.
Dude, we can go down that rabbit hole of dreams, man. We could go. I love to go on that next. I want to hear about your education, but in the back of my head, I'm like, let's save dreams. If Doug wants to go dreams, we can go there for sure.
Yeah, I try to journal my dreams, but it's always tough to remember. Yeah, with education, I generally don't have a strong opinion of higher education. I think it's necessary and great for if you're going to become a doctor, like it's good to understand biology and chemistry and these things. For like the more art, the more artistic type of roles, creative roles that you don't need hard science learning, I feel like higher education is generally uh, way too much money for what you get out of it. You're essentially just getting a degree, which you'll end up working in some role completely unrelated to what your interest was in undergrad. And yeah, it's just it feels like a lot of bloat in that system. So, I mean, it was a great experience, like to go to Michigan football games and have the Greek life there, and it's a great way to spend 4 years as an 18-year-old. But as like after that, in terms of like career value, I don't see much. And then business school, my feelings aren't too different. I truly believe MBAs and business school are just set up to make the rich richer. It is you're buying access to a network, which is a community, but you're you're going in with the premise that someone at this company with high paying jobs will hire me because I went to the same school that they did, and that gets me in the door. And that's not. I'm more of a meritocracy fan when it comes to who should be working in these roles, and the people that can't afford business school because it's also super expensive are not going to get into these communities and then not get those jobs. So that feeling combined with when I was at UCLA's business school, I tried to get a speaker to come in and talk about psychedelic medicine, and uh, the the three pillars that they ingrain in our head as students are for the school. Our core values are think fearlessly, drive change, and share success. So those first two, think fearlessly and drive change, I am trying to get a speaker to come to campus to talk about medicine that the earth makes that is showing very promising results to be much better than the current gold standard that people have tons of problems with. And the school was very unhelpful in helping me make that happen and throwing me around to different, you know, clearances I had to get and all this stuff. So very much not thinking fearlessly or driving change. And that did not sit well with me. And since I've left, now that there are publicly traded mushroom companies, and now that there's money in it, they have no problem having speakers come,
Sure.
which is not surprising. So similarly, yeah, I guess like in general, there's definitely value in this education system for like the hard science approach to medicine, which I agree is valuable, and I think it's a lot more limited and possibly, like in my case, detrimental for um, some of the other approaches to mental health and healthcare.
What were you like in the classroom? I'm just curious. I'm trying to imagine Doug in a high school class or a college class. Yeah, what were you like in the setting?
Two very different situations. High school class,
For me too. That's why I mentioned it. Yeah,
yeah,
man.
high school class definitely goofing off because they gear the classes toward, you know, the middle to lower percentile of the students, which makes them extremely easy for anyone in that upper 50%. So yeah, just goofing off with friends. And the a funny side note, I wrote a newsletter about this recently. My grandma sent me my second grade mid-year report, and it, as a 7-year-old, the teacher said I don't like doing enrichment activities. I would do the bare minimum and then go on to something else, and that definitely resonates with me. Like I don't enjoy someone telling me how to, you know, perfect this thing. Once I make it and I'm satisfied with it, I'm on to the next thing, especially if it's something I didn't want to make to begin with. So that's second grade. Then yeah, high school goofing off, and then college was similar. I'm fairly introverted, so I'm not one to raise my hand in class. Similarly, I'm doing the homework. I'm not reaching out to try and get extra credit or be a teacher's aide, which I do recommend to people if it's a topic you're interested in. Like, build your resume, work on a project with a professor, take an internship within the department, whatever it is. All super valuable ways to spend your time that you're probably not thinking of as a good way to spend your time when you're that age, but pays off massively, you know, 4 years later when you're trying to apply to a role in a field you actually want to be in.
Was there any class or any teacher that really stood out to you that made an impact or, yeah, really stood the test of time of like, oh, yeah, that class actually made a difference?
Yeah, I love that question. In high school, Miss G, Giardina is her full name, Spanish teacher, had her like 3 years in a row, just the different levels of Spanish, and just like a really nice person. Like, could come hang out in her class when we were in off classes. Um, Lenient, but still made sure you did your work. A great teacher overall. So I remember her very fondly. And then statistics professor Long was her last name in business school, and she made statistics very fun, which I already enjoy math. So like, I don't think it's that hard. But for example, she was on Price is Right, and
No way.
we go through the recording, like one of the first classes, and for each like game she was on, she like pauses it, and then she's like, all right, like statistically what should I guess here, based on what other people get, like
No,
whatever.
that's
And
great.
then yeah, so we get to like watch along, uh and then she like explains why she should guess this, and then she shows the clip, she guesses it, she wins, she moves on, and like did that like 3 or 4 levels of the game. She won like multiple cars, and like she crushed the
Wow.
showcase. Yeah, she did
Wow.
really well. So like that was just like a super fun class to learn about statistics in that way, very memorable.
Yeah.
Another thing she did was, there's 70 of us in the class, and she said, I'm willing to bet anyone $1. You give me $1, I'll give you, I think she said like 100 if I'm wrong, that at least 2 people in this class of 70 share a birthday. And
Mm,
we're all thinking like, there's 70, there's 365 days in a year, like 1 in 5, right?
sure.
That's how math works. And we did it, and she like went one by one, like, all right, any January birthdays, all right, any of the same. And we ended up having 6 couples that had the same birthdays.
Wow. Oh,
And she's
wow.
like, statistically, that's like more or less accurate. The chances were like 99.9%, because like I forget the exact, like she broke it down, but
Yeah,
basically like once you reach like, I don't know, 15 people, the chances are more likely than not that someone shares a birthday, which is crazy. So like I guess what brings like the overarching theme is like presenting the educational information in an entertaining and memorable way.
totally. For her, it's funny. Imagine she probably has her own set of probability because there is a non-zero chance that there are no birthday matches, right? So maybe she does that like 100 times, but then she makes $99 from you. You know, she makes $1 each time, but then on the 100th time, she has to give it all back because statistically, like there's going to be a time where that actually statistically happens, and she gives all of her winnings she had from hedging to you guys. Like
Yeah,
sure with
she didn't
her, it's
even
like
take the money. She didn't.
oh,
She didn't take anyone's money, but yeah,
she should Kevin Spacey you guys and just like hustle you guys out of the room. Just take it and
yeah.
take all your money.
That's her side hustle.
Totally. That's great, man. Another sort of game show school side story. There was this guy on Wheel of Fortune. Wheel of Fortune. He went kind of viral, I thought, a few years ago. His name is Robert Santoli. My last name is Scanlon. Me and Robert sat next to each other in like multiple grades, like 5th grade, I think, in one advanced math class at some point. If you go on and search Robert Santoli Wheel of Fortune, he just sweeps through and dominates. And it's like, it was this viral thing of this guy just completely is so prepared and masters Wheel of Fortune. So I was super proud to be like, I know that kid. I
It
sat
could
next
have
to
been
him
you,
many
just a
years.
few letters away.
Oh man, he had a love and a passion for Wheel of Fortune, which I cannot replicate. We were a Jeopardy family, but that's another conversation. Um, another thing I want to hit on in business education, and so I'll say this too. I feel I'm hearing a lot of Scott Galloway, in your critique of higher ed. There's certainly this credentialing elitism to it. It's a very highly protected, place. Higher ed, it's less than 10% acceptance rates in a lot of universities. Universities should be set up to lubricate and help mobilize lower and middle class. Instead, it's there to kind of keep the upper class where it is. So yeah, I'm sure it's really pivoted. And in the past, it's been more of a social mobility tool, but definitely now it's become a brand. It's become a private industry of luxury and of exclusivity in a lot of ways to put the Harvard, the Yale, the NYU, the whatever brand that is on your resume. It's become Armani or whatever else.
And can I just say,
Yeah.
these schools have endowments in the
Yeah.
billions.
Yeah.
Why the fuck are they asking me for money? What do
Right.
you need more money for? You're a
I
hedge
know.
fund. Like,
Yeah.
you want me
They're
to
not public
donate
servants.
money?
Right. They're not public servants. I don't think they're trying to even pretend like they're public servants, you know? Yeah. Yeah.
It's wild.
Yeah.
The
Um,
audacity is
yes.
unbelievable.
So while you were at UCLA, I was at Cal State Long Beach, just a good Cal State school, you know, for the commuters.
Go
No,
beach.
go beat no for at that school. So I'll say this too: my undergrad experience, I went to Fordham in the city in the Bronx, and there's also a Manhattan campus. Fordham is a private Jesuit school. It's you know, probably you got Columbia and NYU, and Fordham's probably just under that. It's a good school. I wouldn't say elite, but really expensive, and they charge you like it's an elite school for sure, just because it's a good school in New York City. I enjoyed it, got, you know, my psych undergrad there, but there was definitely this sort of private school, East Coast Jesuit vibe to it. And then I go to Cal State Long Beach, which is a public school out in California, mostly commuters, way bigger, way more diverse, very different experience in a lot of ways. And so I really enjoyed and was super impressed by Cal State Long Beach. I continue to like mentor students there whenever the, you know, the grad office contacts me. I love giving back to that university. Fordham, I feel like I gave enough. I'm still giving them, paying back my student loans. But with Cal State Long Beach, I'm happy to give back and stay involved because I really, truly think they help really smart people elevate their careers and get promoted and add to their resume. The one thing I will ask, I want to go into a little bit, is the idea of entrepreneurship. And I'll say for my story, I was a psychology, like a mental health provider. I worked in mental health settings up until that point. I had no idea how to start a business, how to run a business, or anything close to that. The MBA really helped me materialize and formalize terms, you know, like accounting and finance, and actually gave language for me to actually understand those concepts. And I think I did that pretty well. But I took an entrepreneurship course, and it actually ended up like 2 or 3 of the courses in the MBA program were designed to like make you build a full business plan. And that was the goal, again, of a few of these courses. And you felt pretty prepared after the program was over of like, oh, if I wanted to start a business, I've done this a couple times. Professors have, you know, poked holes in this. I've had to present this over and over. I feel decent. So entrepreneurship, I always hear, is something that you have to just do. And I agree that there is certainly like a lot of truth in that. There's a lot of things you can't like consider, you know, a lot of things that pop up, and you got to learn how to read your market and just kind of just be very adaptable and have the grit and everything. But I will say there's certainly something to getting a solid education in what a business plan is, the different components to it, how to operate and understand a financial statement, income statement, marketing, go to marketing strategy. There's a lot there that's helped me with Flourish and just approaching the things that I'm trying to approach. But also, I know I'm learning as I'm going to. But yeah, what are your thoughts on business education and the concept that the only way to learn to be an entrepreneur is doing it?
Yeah, great questions. Touching on the latter first, that getting your feet wet and being an entrepreneur is the way to learn about it. I fully agree. I think any business knowledge education will help, but like with anything in life, until you do it, you have no idea what it's going to be. Um, and that's probably the biggest thing I learned in my business education, is that that strategizing and preparing is important. What they don't teach you, which is equally valuable, is it's never going to pan out that way. One of my favorite Stoic quotes, I'm paraphrasing, is a person without a plan is foolish, and a person that expects the plan to happen as planned is equally foolish. Uh, so yeah, having a plan, very important, and then understanding that the plan will not happen uh, is very important too. So there's like a lot of the stuff that you mentioned, I think you can learn online. Like, what are the components of a business plan? Especially now with ChatGPT, like you can get,
Yeah.
incredible. You could have ChatGPT make your business plan in a few minutes just by giving it a brain dump of all the information you have.
I'm actually
Um,
going to give ChatGPT a board seat. It's been that influential in our formation, so it's going to get voting power next quarter. Yeah.
it's a wise decision. Uh, yeah. So there's things like one of my classes, Peter Goober was the professor. He owns like the Dodgers and Warriors, and he's very rich, and he made that money in business. And he comes in and just like says whatever the hell he wants to say for an hour and a half, and like doesn't have
I
a
love those
script.
professors. You could tell they've like
Yeah,
been through wars and they don't really care. They just get paid to show up, their name, their credential, and they just kind
yeah,
of wing it. But there's a lot of great nuggets in there, I'm sure, right?
yeah, absolutely. Like sounds like a dream job. Like someone just basically what we're doing now, just like talk about whatever the fuck we want to talk about for an hour and a half and get paid. Like, yeah.
That's the dream, man. That's the dream.
Yeah. Yeah. So like he said a few things that stuck with me. The biggest one is anytime anyone says anything to you or offers you a proposal or a partnership, just say, that's interesting. Let me think about it. And they feel heard, they feel you're going to consider it. And then that buys you time to research it, to you knew you were going to
Yeah.
say no, but it gives you some space to make it seem like to let them down easy. Uh,
Yeah.
it's like such an easy thing to remember. That's interesting. Let me think about it. And it's like there's no downside to it. Even if like you want to take it, you can like really like think into um, how to maximize the relationship, whatever it might be. So little things like that, like if I didn't go to business school, I wouldn't have heard him say that, and it wouldn't have stuck with me. Who knows what else I would have done with my 2 years worth of time that would have or would not have stuck with me. Definitely wouldn't have cost as much as that business school degree did. But yeah, I think there's like uh, small things that are hard to replicate, like being in a room with him that business school can provide. But a lot of the things that are like commonly known practices, like HBS case studies and how to
Yeah.
make a business plan, like anyone can find those without having to go to business school for it.
Right on. Yeah, I want to pivot into your work, into your business, and I love what you do. And I think there's a lot of meaning that's overt and also kind of covert in how it fits into how we see health and wellness in our society. But yeah, why don't you just give me an intro about Slow the Fuck Down, your newsletter, your groups, and I think the subtext that I want to explore is what problem is it solving? How does it fit in the current kind of wellness ecosystem? I see it as a thing that's super community based and driven. It's integrative. There's multiple components to the things you offer, the experiences you offer. And there's also a kind of a ritual aspect to it. Your writing, your newsletter, and encouraging people to do the same, I think, is a ritual and a practice that I don't think a lot of people equate with healthcare and wellness. I think they are increasingly equating it with that. But that's kind of the trend I'm noticing. I think that's really what your offerings highlight, which is awesome. But yeah, why don't you go into a little bit about the story of starting this venture and what you're trying to solve?
Yeah, I appreciate your kind words. And I forgot if it was after we hit play on the recording or not. You mentioned that it's a practice, and I agree 100%. Happiness isn't a destination, it's the journey, all the cliches. Um, is totally true. And that's another issue with the modern medical system is like, what's your problem? Tell this person in a white coat, they will give you the cure, and that's it. If you're not cured after that, it's something wrong with you. They're even trying to do that with mushrooms and plant medicine now. Like, take 2 pills of mushrooms and see you next month, because that's how you make money. If you actually cure people, it's harder to make money off of them. So my newsletter started in December of this past year, and uh, it really was my decision that I want to be a creator. an influencer, all these things that like I have connotations about in my head that I have had to and continue to try and overcome because I want to do what I love doing for a living, get compensated for it. I've tried a few times throughout my life to work in a corporate setting and just can't do it. So this is my way of doing what it takes to make my life how I want it to be. And the newsletter, yeah, the like having to do one once every Thursday, holding myself to that standard, uh, it helps me write and get my thoughts out on paper and um, to just be able to think about the concepts that are in my mind and have to flesh them out, and it gets me very clear. The newsletter is just as much for me as for people I'm writing it for, um, to get really clear on what I'm writing. And uh, when I hear what resonates with people, I get to dive deeper into those topics. So that's cool. I'm also just a hilarious person, and it's an outlet for my humor. So I've won the New Yorker caption contest twice, so I have the credentials. Don't worry.
Wow, nice.
Yeah,
Got the
it's
receipts to back it up. Love it.
my greatest accomplishments in life for sure. And yeah, it's a fun way to be fun and funny. So there's that. And yeah, my one of my goals with the newsletter is to inform people about Slow the Fuck Down. So that is my community that does, at its core, yoga, breath work, and cannabis for those that are inclined to support with cannabis. And we practice those practices together from home. So you don't have to worry about driving or going to a studio where the mats are musty. Whatever your reason is, we make it as easy as possible. Do it where you're comfortable at home, light some candles, some incense, and we teach people how to do those things and practice yoga and breath work. And it's just time. That's the biggest thing, is it's time in your calendar that you are going to prioritize yourself. And we help people set up to not have their phone on, make sure that if they have dogs, kids, whatever, that those are accounted for so they don't have to worry about it. And for most people, I think people can't even remember the last time that they gave themselves any time, let alone 2.5 hours, to just fully relax and be present. And with that 2.5 hours, with the yoga, we are able to gently feel into our bodies and work out some kinks. And then with the breath work, we're able to really travel inwardly and feel into what our priorities are, what we're doing that we want to stop, what we're excited for that we want to start. Really, just get in touch with our our higher selves, and uh, it's a very powerful 2.5 hours. I have been doing it for myself for a couple of years now, and realized that this should absolutely be something that everyone does in some capacity. So that was the start of building Slow the Fuck Down. And now we have a do it at your own pace course where we walk people through setting up your calendar to better suit how you want to spend your time. Apps you download in your phone to prevent you from using the apps you know are killing your time, but once you get in the doom scroll, you can't get out of. Learning about the yoga and breath work and why it's important and how it works, and learning about your human design and how that impacts the way that you relate to stillness and peace and satisfaction. So yeah, a lot of things. To sum it up, Slow the Fuck Down is a community of people that are committed to slowing the fuck down.
I mean, yeah, you said setting your own pace for individuals. I mean, that's at the crux of what you want to do, right? It's like, well, our practice is helping you slow down, but also the nature of my business and the nature of what people can choose, how they can take these practices should be at their own pace as well, which is very meta and I think so aligned. I want to also ask you a little bit about, it sounds like you've done that combination for yourself for years, as you mentioned. I am in the same way of like, when I find a practice, it's typically like a trial and error period for me, like certain kinds of coffees or drinks in the morning, tea, mushroom, this, something. If it's yoga, I had this thing once where I would meditate, do a little yoga, go for a run, then jump in. When I lived in Long Beach, I would jump in the marina and it was like cold. So it's kind of like a cold plunge swim. I love that. Did that for a few months, and that was really awesome on my central nervous system and everything. But I'd love to know, the combination of yoga, breath work, cannabis. What was the trial and error period like? Did it you just kind of dawn upon you? Did you start with one and the others followed? What was that experimentation process like?
Yeah, I love that question. So I love to experiment. I've tried many times. It just doesn't sit with me to be like a big data tracker, biohacker type of person. I might
Yeah.
track for a day or two and then I just get over it. I'm very much like a feel person. So
Yeah.
I like to know everything that's available so I can know what feels good in the moment. Everything
Yeah.
from like, it feels like I should do breath work now to it feels like I should do this breath work now. And I know that because I've done this one enough that I know, how it goes, what the session is like. So, yeah, I think it probably started with breath work. The first time I did breath work was probably like 3 or 4 years ago, and realized how awesome it is that we have this drug that is just breathing, and it's a very good for you drug. It's oxygenating your body. So once I learned that, I was pretty hooked, and I was in the top 10 users of the Othership Breathwork app, and they like interviewed me to try and get some customer info. And I still
wow.
preach that app every day.
Yeah.
I use it every day. It's great. So it all kind of just came together that oftentimes if I do breath work and I haven't moved in a while, I just feel kind of like stagnation in my body.
Yeah.
And as anytime I get breath work, I get very in tune with my higher self. And a lot of the times the message will be, I should be moving around more. So that is a great message. It's also, if it comes through enough during breath work, it's like, all right, well, I don't want my whole session to be focused on this. So I'll start doing yoga before the breath work. So I don't, that's kind of check that box off and move down the list type of thing. So I started to incorporate a relatively light yoga session before my breath work. And it was fantastic. And I've done cannabis before breathwork before, and I always find that to be a nice supplement or complement, I should say, to the practice. Maybe it is supplement. Now I'm wondering about that. I'll have to circle back. And yeah, I think it all just kind of came together one time, and I was like, this trilogy of things just is like the right amount of time for one evening every week, and they all complement each other in such a great way. I always feel fantastic coming out of it. I've been using cannabis therapeutically in this sense for a while. When I was growing up, it was very much like just get high to get high. Now it's always to de-stress or just relax or turn my brain off for a bit. There's always a therapeutic reasoning for it, and that's completely changed my relationship with cannabis. So yeah, just the combination of all three things has been like a incredibly powerful, efficient, it doesn't really cost anything tool. And I recommend it to people all the time. Like, you can find yoga and breath work on YouTube for free. You can totally do these things yourself, and you should. The Othership app is relatively inexpensive. It's even more powerful with a group of people and doing it live. And that's really the benefit of Slow the Fuck Down, is the organization, the application. So you can just show up. You don't have to pick a video from YouTube or find one and get ads in the middle. You show up. We've got super qualified Michael with the yoga, Jonathan with the breathwork, facilitators. We drop in with the cannabis intentionally for anyone that wants to do that. And then we share afterward. and you get to see the same faces over and over and the continuity. And yeah, it's really cool. So it is, saying this all out loud, it is, I'm grateful that it's come to this point from, just being something I do on my own, call it therapy night. Um, it's become this, and yeah, who knows how big it'll grow. My goal is 150 people in the community, so we're at 6. We're on our way.
Right on, man. Yeah, I mean, I always try to reference, like, there's a study where, like, human kind of tribes, I think, never really exceeded 150 or 200. Like,
That's why I
there's
picked that number. It's 150.
right.
It's called Dunbar's number.
I had a feeling, man. Yeah, we have this assumption that when we have a business or a craft or anything to share, so we have to scale it as big as possible, reach as many people, and change the world. But I think at times that might sacrifice quality and integrity. And I think keeping it in a community and a tribe setting and a volume that where you can really control everything to it, and the quality and kind of people feel ownership in it. I think that's super, super important. And then one thing you said in the beginning, it's like the biohacking stuff. I saw this really cool post today from someone I follow on LinkedIn who I really like. I think is Corey Firth. I think he's Canadian. He, talking about the similarities between hustle culture and healing culture. And it's really, you're doing the same thing. I think people that are away from hustle culture are like, oh, healing culture. I get up at 3 a.m. and I, cold plunge, run and meditate and all this before 7 a.m. I do that every day. And but the idea behind that stuff is you're kind of doing that unconsciously. You're forcing yourself, right? Every day. Maybe sometimes your body wants to do 2 of those things, but not one. Maybe your body wants rest, listening to your body and being conscious with your decision making. That's health. And health can be applied to any setting. It can be applied to relationships, it can be applied to food, it can be applied to activity and all these sorts of things. So I never think of health as a collection of boxes I have to check and medications or habits. Even it's my relationship to things. Sounds like you have a great relationship with these practices and that you look forward to them every month, every week, whatever it is. And you get so much fulfillment and connection to your higher self from it. And there's no forcedness, there's no hacking, right? It's like hacking to me, like it implies you're trying to outsmart something, right? You're trying to outsmart your own body. You're trying to go around it like it's some sort of boss or thing you have to get around, So I never like that. And I think sometimes we conflate the same principles that we find icky in hustle culture in healing culture. But I think the core of it, man, is what you're doing, which is listening to your body, building community, understanding the quality, integrity of these things, not just in the community, but with your own self and how you treat yourself. So dude, it's been beautiful. I do have to hop off soon. The last question I had, and just before we hop off, is your family back in New York? Are they back in Goshen, or where are they now?
Back in Goshen.
Nice. When was the last time you were there then?
Good question. Maybe like 8 months or so.
Nice. How do you feel when you go back there? I love the Hudson Valley so much. I'm from Westchester. I haven't been back there in a little while, but I love the Hudson Valley. Whenever I'm there, I'm just like, it feels so homey to me. But yeah, how do you feel when you go back there?
The Hudson Valley itself, fantastic.
Yeah.
My parents' house individually is also fantastic. It just reverts me to childhood. Where it's like no rules, like late bedtimes, eat whatever you want, and of course, like because I'm home, it's like a thing. So we're getting like nice meals or not like desserts all the time. So it's so hard to like, and I don't have my space here, like to the Turtle Temple, call it, for slow the fuck down. I don't have that at my parents' house to practice regularly, so the practices go by the wayside. So like it's nice for a very short period of time, and then anything beyond that, it can become a struggle.
That is eerily relatable, man. Yeah. But dude, I appreciate the time. I appreciate everything you're doing. I know we'll continue to talk and help each other out and work with each other. on what I think are very aligned goals. And yeah, man, our stories intersect in some really cool ways. So yeah, man, I appreciate learning from you and talking to you today.
Yeah, I appreciate all the questions. This was fun. And shout out to Corey Firth, too. He's a good brother. He's on my nonprofit board.